Hey everyone, welcome back to Malts and Meeples. It's time for more of the top 100 games of all time. This time we're in the top half of the list. We're at 50 through 41. And I'm excited for this. I'm always excited for this because I always love all the games I put on my list. If I didn't, oddly enough, they wouldn't be there. So just a quick reminder, I haven't done this in a few streams, that there are a few games that get clumped together into a single group. I don't think I actually have any this chunk of the list, but that does happen. So just to be aware, like if you're checking out previous videos, you might not see games completely split up. If they're similar enough, it is very possible that I will stick them together. But let's get started with this. Let's get started with game number 50, the first one on the top half of my list. And this is going to be one that has been on my list for a few years. Forgot to do this. Drinking an old fashioned. But this one is actually about drinking, or more so about the crafting of beer. This is Homebrewers. Homebrewers is kind of a engine building game, it's more a resource management gathering game, as you are crafting different brews and increasing your skills in stuff like stouts, porters, IPAs, and I think lagers, if I remember correctly. And you're pushing up tracks, gaining points, gaining money, to try to be the best homebrewer. Now, this one, I will say, I do have like a personal connection with, because I have brewed a decent amount of beer in my lifetime, and I've gotten fairly good at it, though it's been a few years since I've done that. I probably have to brush up on my skills again. But this one, yeah, it's just a fun game, and you brew some really funky beers at the end. Like, would you want a hazelnut lemon porter? I'd try it. Actually, that's basically my answer to all of them. I'd try it. But this one, it's a fast game, simple game to play. You end up with some really fun beers, and I like it because, yeah, you can have a strategy for it, and there are certain things like my IPA, let's say. I'm going up and I'm really working on brewing my IPA. You get points for whatever your lowest thing is as well. Well, I might place a flavor or something on my IPA that says, hey, every time you brew this, now you go up on your lager as well. So I don't have to brew my lager to at least push that up the track some. It's a nice little addition to the game that allows you to kind of craft and figure out what you want to brew. Then, number 49, we have a roll and write. There are two of them on this section of the list. This is the first one, and this one is Trek 12. Trek 12 is a game about climbing mountains, kind of. Really, it's a game about putting like numbers or runs of numbers adjacent to each other on the mountain, so that you can kind of track certain paths that are going to give you points at the end of the game. Like, the longer a run you have, the more points you're going to get. But where this becomes like a really interesting puzzle is how you figure out what number you're going to place. You roll 2 dice, and with those dice, you are going to be placing in a few different kind of categories or different ways. The first one is, if you can take the higher die, you can take the lower die, you can take, I guess, all of them. We're going through all of them fast here. You can do the value of the two of them added together, you can do the difference of the two of them, or you can do the two of them multiplied together. Now, there is like a upper end that you can't multiply past, so sometimes that one isn't an option. But you're trying to get everything filled in, score as many points as possible, not have orphan numbers out there that aren't a part of a set or a run, and whoever has the most at the end wins. This one's fun. It's a solid solo game. and I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy it as much as I do. It also works well in groups because everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. You're just deciding how you're going to use those dice differently, and you get really different mountains at the end of it. I will say, though, about the solo mode AI that you play against is not that great. It's not a fun AI to do. It's basically you're playing a second game, but the AI is telling you how to do it. It always just takes the highest numbered die. Okay, that's not that difficult, but it's kind of a boring, tedious little extra thing. This is one of those games where I would say to play it solo, I just prefer to play a beat your high score. See how high you can get on it. And I think that's a better way to play solo than with the rules as written. Though I think potentially there's some ways that you can do like a mini campaign. I think you can do that either solo or not. If you're doing it solo, you would want to have the AI in there just to have that opponent that you're playing against because of some of the things in there. Next up, we have a cooperative game, and this is a cooperative word game, which I don't feel like I can think of ton or any others on that. But this is going to be one that I picked up in 2019, learned at Gen Con, played it twice there in 2019. And that's going to be Letter Jam. Letter Jam is, like I said, a cooperative word game that feels a little bit like Hanabi in some ways, in that you have a word in front of you, but it's on cards that are face down. And you have one of your cards that is standing up, but it's facing away from you, so you don't know what it is. Everybody has one of those. Oh, not So Clover. So Clover was already on the list. I want to say that was in the 60s. Let's look that up. Now I'm curious. That was 80. Wow. Further down than I thought. So with this one, yeah, you have the letter facing away from you. You can't see your letter, but you can see everybody else's. So everybody's kind of taking turns, and yeah, it definitely is another good cooperative party game. Ooh, cooperative word game. I don't know that I would qualify it as I guess it is a word game. It's just less of a spelling game. Cooperative spelling game is what Letter Jam is. Because you have the card facing away from you, you can see everybody else's. So I can see theirs, and I might be able to create a clue. So it might be something like farm, and I put out chips, poker chips that go 1, 2, 3, 4 in front of the people I'm playing the clue for, because each of them has a letter, so each of them knows if it's their level letter or not. But farm might potentially not be the best clue. Let's say instead of farm it was form, or maybe it's firm. So if I'm the person who has the vol, I now have 3 different options. I've narrowed it down a little bit. But if I do, say it was form, I could have also done from. Now that gives everybody a better guess as to what their letters might be, though there's still some up in the air. It's just a really fun game, and it's a weird kind of thing to not be able to see what you have, and there's not enough turns to know precisely what you have. So, well, you better hope that you can narrow it down to a couple options, and then once you're done, you can sort and get your word in the right order. So Then we'll go on to number 47. Number 47, I believe, was as high as number 2 on the list when I started. And that's going to be Sam Healey, formerly of the Dice Tower, now Flip Side. Catch you on the flip side. Flip side of board gaming. He loves Blood Rage. Blood Rage is an area control drafting Viking game where you're trying to win battles, potentially control areas to complete quests, and score just basically as many points as you can. Whoever scores the most points wins. And there are a ton of different strategies for it. This is a really fun, area control is the best way to describe it. But I think a lot of the time that drafting is what makes this game, because you're drafting different powers for your leaders, your troops, your ships, whatever ship, not plural, singular ship, whatever it might be. You might be able to recruit a monster that does cool things, or you might, if you're sneaky enough about it, be able to draft all the Loki cards, and those Loki cards are great for going into battle and then losing, and then having your troops die off, get sent to Valhalla, and repeating the process. So, yeah. It is just a fun game that I think CMON is coming out with a second edition for at some point in time. They did actually just announce a RPG for Blood Rage, which I'm just like, well, isn't that Norse mythology? You could play that in almost any system. But that's neither here or there. That is not on my list. I probably won't actually check it out, but it's a fun game that I need to get back to the table. I can see it just off to the side here on the shelf. It's like I'm looking at the game, except it's also over there. Next up is another one that has been higher on the list. I also think it's been lower on the list. Just kind of floats around. And this is one of the older games on my list. It's the haunted house game that everybody thinks of. That, yeah, it is not super balanced. There are scenarios that are really hard to understand what's going on because they need to keep information hidden from the survivors or the betrayer. That is going to be Betrayal at House on the Hill. But whenever I play it, I have fun with it. It's the horror film where you're not quite sure. It might be a horror film where everybody dies off. And I like the two parts of the game. Like I said, there's the haunt. It's not always the most balanced. Somebody might have exactly what they need to be able to complete the haunt, and it's going to be over fast. Or they might have nothing that they need. And so the survivors, the ones who aren't the haunters, might just be able to take them out like that. But the whole exploration of the house and trying to make sure that nobody's too strong, but you're also getting really strong yourself so that when the haunt happens, if you're the person, if you're the betrayer, you are set up to go. But if you're not, you're set up to handle them. It's a fun system, and one I would also put Betrayal at Baldur's Gate on here. It works well. I haven't played Betrayal 3rd Edition. I do want to give that a try just to see if it feels cleaner. And I have Betrayal Legacy that I need to play as well. So, I mean, it's a popular game, and it's one that has stood the test of time, even if it's not always the most balanced out there. Then, number 45, we have... Actually, I think this was number 2 or 3 a couple of years ago. So it's dropped a bit as well. And this one is just, I haven't played it enough recently. A cooperative or solo game. Marvel Champions. I love Marvel stuff. I love playing as a superhero. This is a deck construction game where you go into battle against a villain who has some sort of scheme, and you're trying to stop him. You're trying to keep his schemes from going off or her schemes from happening, and then knock them down as well. All of this is kind of working with an interesting mechanic for the heroes. Heroes generally have your hero, so you have your Spider-Man, for example, on that cover, and then you have Peter Parker. Well, in Peter Parker form, the bad guys, they're always going to scheme. They don't have anybody to fight. They don't know who you are because your identity is hidden from them. That's great because it offers you a chance to heal. But you also can't really interfere with their scheming, and you certainly can't fight them because you don't want to give away your secret identity. So it's balancing this. When do you go into your alter ego, and when are you your superhero? Because your superhero, ooh, wow, it was number 4 last year. Yeah, that is a big drop. Honestly, it's because I haven't played it this year. I think that's probably the big reason for it. Thank you for finding that out, by the way. Bacchus Pup. So, yeah, like I said, that is a big drop. It's one that I want to play more. It's one that I still get everything for because I love the Marvel theme. I really love kind of the gameplay for it. I should start playing through like some of the campaigns for it. Actually, maybe that will be my Wednesday night campaign after doing my top 100. I think we're getting close to another campaign box coming out, and I know I have one sitting around here somewhere that I haven't mixed in with everything. So it would be fun to sit down and just play through a series of games there. Pick my heroes and go and see what happens. So then at number 44, we have the other roll and write game. This one, again, I think probably had a little bit of a drop to it, but it is still a really fun roll and write bingo game, and that is Super Mega Lucky Box. In Super Mega Lucky Box, you are filling out bingo cards, but you're not going for getting 5 in a row, really. You get points, most points for completing the blackout, covering up everything on your 3x3 grid on one of the 3 cards in front of you. But you do get a bonus every time you fill, or almost every time, you fill in a row or column. Some of those are just like, hey, you immediately get the bonus to cross off another number, another 7 or another 3. Or it might be whatever number you want. So you can start to combo some things together, which I really like for a roll and write game. Or it might be, hey, you get some lightning bolts. Well, what do lightning bolts do? They allow you to adjust the number on the card up or down by 1 per lightning bolt, and it does wrap. So it goes from 9 to 1, 1 to 9, with only having to spend a single lightning bolt. So you have the ability to use every card. Or it might be blue moons. Those just give you points if you have the most of them. Or it might be, stars. The more stars you complete in a round, which is 9 cards, the more points that you get from those stars. It's a simple game. It plays pretty quickly. I say pretty quickly because everybody does everything at the same time, but there's a little bit of thought that has to go into it. It's that nice balance of a game that's pretty light and easy to pick up, but isn't devoid of strategy. I was actually worried that it was the first time I played it, but the more I've played it, the more I'm like, no, there actually is some interesting thought process that goes into this. And when you complete things, it works well. Now, probably the most strategic game on the list is coming up next at number 43, because this one is all about physics. That's Pitch Car. Okay, maybe it's not the most strategic game out there. It is one of my favorite dexterity games, though. This is just a car racing game. That's what you're doing. You're racing cars around a track, and you are flicking them with your finger to be the first to complete a circuit. Now, it sounds fun. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a super strategic, it's not a super deep game. You can get better at it the more you practice, but it's just one of those games that's a lot of fun because you can play, I think I have enough to play up to 8. So you get a ton of people just kind of walking around a table. Everybody kind of backs up, watches other people take their shots. You feel for them when they have a couple bad shots in a row, or you cheer for them when they have a really great shot. There are a ton of like crazy things that you can add in. You can add in little jumps. You can add in a section of the track that goes up and over and down that you can put a tunnel underneath. There's even a loop-de-loop that you can put in there as well. So just a ton of like silly little things to make it as difficult or as easy as you'd want. This is one that I love for that start of the night. Everybody isn't necessarily ready to sit down and play something heavier. People are still kind of arriving. If you're doing food, people are standing up and eating. People are catching up. And so you just pull out pitch car, or really pitch car is big enough you have set up pitch car, and you just kind of go and play it while more people are showing up and just while you can chat away. Then at number 42, we have a solo only game that I got this year, and I have had a ton of fun with it. This is a solo only trick taking game for Northwood. In this game, you're playing against an AI, not really an AI, a deck of cards, and you're trying to win tricks. You're trying to win the favor of woodland creatures who rule different parts of the forest. The interesting thing is that for some of them to win the favor, you need to not win a single trick. For others of them to win their favor, you have to win, I think it goes 0 to 7. You have to win 7 tricks, and each of those gives you points. So like a 0 or a 7, if you complete those, you get 4 points each, which is tricky because you are flipping a card from the top of the deck for what that woodland creature is playing. So it's really lucky. How do you kind of mitigate that? Well, you have some people who work for you or help you, and they have superpowers or certain powers. It might be draw back up to 8 cards in your hand. So when you use that power, if you're down to 1 card, you're drawing 7 more cards. If you're at 6 cards, you're only drawing 2. It becomes a strategy as to when you do that. Or it might be discard all the numbers except for 1 of each number. That's a great way to thin out your hand if you're trying to get down to 0. So it's this puzzle of when you use powers, which powers do you take in to a certain encounter, and you get to pick which order you go in. So I look at my hand and go, okay, well, I have enough to be set up to deal with 5. I can win 5 tricks most likely this time. We have our helper that's going to allow us to grab an extra card or 2 if we need to make that work. And it's just a blast. This is a nice, fast 15-20 minute game, probably 15, and it also comes with a scenario book so you can play different pre-planned scenarios. And finally, finally here at number 41, to finish off this section of 10 on the list, we have Sagrada. Sagrada is a game that I just keep on coming back to, and I have fun with it. It also helps that it has an app that is fun to play. So I can sit down and play Sagrada even if I don't have a group for it. I could also do that. Sagrada can be played solo. I think, actually, that is one I should try solo because I think it could be fun. But Sagrada is about building a stained glass window. And to do that, you're drafting translucent dice. Those translucent dice are going to be varying colors. You roll them at the start of a round. So they're varying numbers. And you need to fill in your 5x4 stained glass window. I think it's 5x4. I don't think it's 6x4. 5x4. Yeah, 5x4. It's 20 dice. There are some rules, though. Your stained glass window is going to tell you what colors and what numbers have to go in some of the spots. The more spots it tells you, the harder it is to complete. But you also have to think about as you place dice. Because as you're placing out those dice into your stained glass window, they need to be adjacent to other dice. So you have to place it next to something you've already placed. Well, beyond that, you can't have numbers or colors that are the same orthogonally adjacent. That means up, down, left, right. They can be adjacent diagonally, but not, like I said, up, down, and left, right. So you're kind of having to figure out that puzzle because you might be like, well, I have a blue and this spot needs a 6. So I can't put a blue 6 in that blue spot if it's right above the spot that needs a 6. I also can't put that blue 6 in that 6 spot if it's right below a spot that needs a blue, because now I've blocked myself from being able to play in those. Of course, like I said, some of them are harder than the others, so how do they balance that out? Well, they do that by giving you little stones, little pieces of glass, I guess I should say, to activate powers. The first person to activate a power, it only costs them 1. Every subsequent activation costs 2 of those glass beads. And they do stuff like they let you draft 2 dice in a row, or draft a die and re-roll it and use that new number. So there are a bunch of different options as to what it can do. You play with 3 of them each time, as well as then there are different scoring objectives. So I might have a personal goal of score all the pips on blue dice on my stained glass window. So that's my personal thing. But I'm also going for, I get points for every pairs of 5 6s, every column that doesn't repeat a number, and every row that has all different colors. Those are just some examples of what you have. So you're trying to balance all those things to get that scoring right on your window, as well as to be able to complete your window, because any open spot you get a negative point for. It's just a fun, well-designed game that is pretty to look at as you play and pretty to look at as you finish. And I have Sagrada Artisans, which is a follow-up to Sagrada that I need to get played. I picked it up at Gen Con this year, and that is going to be the legacy version of this game. So I'm excited to get that to the table soon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. I say soon, I just have so many campaign or legacy games. I don't know when that's going to happen. But there you have it. There you have my 50 through 41. Let's run through them quickly again. At number 50, we have Homebrewers, a game about brewing beer and trying to score the most and best beers at Summerfest and Oktoberfest. At number 49, we have Trek 12, a game about mountain climbing where you're using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and other things to create runs and groups of numbers to score the most points possible on your climb. You have Letter Jam, a cooperative spelling game where you are trying to figure out the word that you have in front of you, just like everybody else is, and the clues that you give are words, and everybody can see the letters in that word except for the one that's in front of them. Then we have at 47, Blood Rage, a game of card drafting, blood rage, taking over areas, leveling up your troops, and just area control, fighting, and, well, some questing. I guess you can quest as well. All of that with the Norse gods, of course, as your background or backdrop. It's number 46. We have Betrayal at House on the Hill, the game of exploring a haunted house until something happens that turns one of you against the rest. And now it's a game of survival as one of you tries to complete your goal and everybody else tries to survive and complete their objective or get out of the house, whatever it might be. Then at 45, we have Marvel Champions. This is a solo and cooperative card game of playing as a superhero trying to defeat a villain who is working on their villainous scheme. All of this is done through deck building and is an interesting game of balancing being in your hero form, where the bad guy, the villain, will attack you, and being in your alter ego, your Peter Parker to your Spider-Man, where you can heal up, but now that villain is going to be working on completing their scheme. At 44, we have Super Mega Lucky Box. Super Mega Lucky Box. That doesn't make any sense. Super Mega Lucky Box, a gamer's bingo, where you are filling out cards, and as you do that, complete rows and columns, you get bonuses that allow you to fill out your other cards even faster. Then, at number 43, we have our dexterity game for this section. List Pitch Car, a game of car racing where you are flicking your car around that track, and that track could be completely bonkers with even a loop in it. First one to cross that finish line wins. Of course, go off the track, go back to where you shot from. Then 42, we have a solo-only game, a solo-only trick-taking game for Northwood, where you are, well, trying to win the favor of animal royalty in the forest by winning whatever specific number is on their piece of the forest, that specific number of tricks. No more, no less, by the time you've played out your hand. So it's a game of using powers and knowing how to kind of read how strong a hand you have to figure out how many tricks you are going to win. And finally, at number 41, we have Sagrada, a game of making stained glass windows where you're drafting dice to create beautiful stained glass windows. But of course, there are rules around what color or what number can go in certain spots, and unlimited pool of dice to draft from. But there we have it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining in the chat and filling in some information like, hey, Marvel Champions was number 4 last year. Number 45 this year. 41-point drop. It's basically garbage at this point. Highly recommend you do not pick it. No, it's still a great game. If you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up and let me know in the comment section down below which of these games do you want to play most. Could be one that you've played already and you just want to play it again, or one that you haven't played, and which one from this section is your favorite on the list. I put out videos Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Central, I'm going to be continuing through my top 100 games of all time 2023 edition for a few more weeks, 4 more weeks in fact. And then I also play campaign games. So like I was talking about with Marvel Champions, I think I like that plan. I think I'm going to be doing a Marvel Champions campaign next after I wrap up this list. As well as then on Monday nights, I stream some one-off solo games. So like recently, this past Monday, I did fishing lessons, and I've played Trailblazers a couple times as well recently on stream. The best way, though, to know when I go live, and it helps the channel grow, so I appreciate that as well, is to subscribe and click that notification bell. If you want to check out any other content that I do, there's a link for nerdologist.com down in the description below, where I'm writing about board games, anime, manga, books, television, movies. Not recently beer, but I have done beer in the past. Gen Con, when it's around that time of year. So all sorts of nerdy things that you can check out there. I also have a Marvel podcast, 10 Minute Marvel, that if you like Marvel stuff, check that out. This upcoming week's episode will be about the season finale for Loki and the Marvels. Gonna go watch that in theaters coming up here real soon. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I have a tiny sip left. Bottoms up.